Hi everyone, it's Jazz here. I actually wanted to create this video to talk about the hardest parts, or so to say, like challenges of being multilingual, because as much as when I tell people that I'm multilingual, it just feels like I get this whole like wow factor, like, oh wow, that's amazing, or you're really smart, or whatever. There's multiple components to that. So I want to really talk about the challenges that come with being multilingual and how, in a way, that I've kind of dealt with that as well as overcome that. The first thing I'll say is that it's not enough to just learn the language. It's another thing to maintain them. Sometimes people think that when you learn a language, it's like, okay, well, I'm done. Don't have to worry about that again. Yes, it's very important, because when you have multiple languages, not only that, especially for me, the first four are the ones the first five are the ones that I have pretty much made more effort than the other six or five so to say. So with that being the case, is that it's like I constantly have to maintain it, because, for example, with French, I use that all the time. My devices, my Google accounts, everything is in French, so I'm in front of it all the time. I watch French TV. I have a VPN, so I can, find entertaining things to do or to watch in those languages. Especially, I made it to where I can't really ignore that. Then there's German. I was in Germany. My boyfriend's also German, so I can't really avoid not using German, after especially almost just about reaching that 5-year mark of learning German. Italian I don't use as much, but I do have a friend that I communicate with every once in a while just to maintain that. Spanish, I don't use it as often, just because I don't live in LA anymore. At the moment, I'm not in LA. So I was using it all the time because so many people were speaking it. So you have to create those environments for yourself in that case. So maintaining it, because for me with Spanish, I remember I was actually speaking with someone. They wanted to practice languages back and forth. And when we switched to Spanish, we realized that I can understand her, but speaking was just so difficult because I'm not used to coming, those words coming natural to me, because I don't use it as much. And when I was in Mexico, yes, I did improve, but like I said, I'm not in Mexico anymore. So it's just kind of like an out of sight, out of mind. So if you don't practice it, it just kind of takes a little bit more effort to recall a lot of that information. So that is a challenge, is that you have to, once you acquire so many languages, it becomes harder to maintain all of them. And also I teach some of these languages, so it's very much like I have to use it, as well. The next thing I'll say is code switching. It is a challenge because you're sometimes not speaking the right language at the right time. Especially like when I teach French, because I'm so used to communicating in German simultaneously throughout the day. It's kind of like I have to watch my words carefully so that I'm not speaking German when I need to be speaking French. In some cases, grammar structure will get confused, because even though, for example, when I write I have a journal that I write in French. It's like just like a regular journal that that you would do if for anyone who would be journaling. But sometimes I notice that I'm writing in French, but I'm writing in German grammar structure, which is like sentence structure, which is different. It's German switches everything up, but French follows the natural order in the same way it does with English. So for me, it's just like trying to be like, no, that's not grammatically correct in French. In German, that would be, but I'm not. It gets confusing, especially like remembering, like getting in those mindsets to switch, because some languages I have to be to switch languages. Using English is fine because it's my native language and I can go in and out of English all the time. But with other languages, that aren't my native language, it's more of trying to remember, okay, like we're in Spanish mode right now, and trying to, it's kind of like, with actors when they're trying to get into character, it's like, okay, we're in Spanish now, thinking in Spanish, thinking in Spanish, thinking in Spanish, and then other times like having to switch, because when I was in France at one point, I remember someone at the church that I went to, he was asking me if I spoke Spanish too. I said, yeah, I did. And I was trying to switch into Spanish to communicate with him, but French just kept coming out. So I was trying I promise I am not incompetent. I do know these languages. It's just that trying to switch like that is just difficult sometimes, especially for me as a person who processes information, very deeply. The other thing is that sometimes I'm having to memorize like different sets of vocabulary for each language. So let's say, for example, I know how to say hello in 10 different ways. That's a no-brainer. But it's like if I go down the chain of like into the languages that I don't know as well as the other 4 or 5, I keep forgetting there's 5. Going down the chain, I start using language, like I start using substituting words for things that I know better in other languages. And there's actually a YouTube video, there's actually a TED Talk from Dr. Naja Ferjan Ramirez. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. It's linked below. But she did a study about that, how, because her kids are trilingual. They speak Serbian, English, and then Spanish. So sometimes their sentences will kind of be like code switched, because sometimes what they'll do is they'll know this one word better in this language. It's like, okay, I know this word better. Like I remember I was talking to my roommate in college. He was an exchange student from Mexico. And I remember I didn't know the word for beverage at the time. I didn't know bebidas. But then at the time I used boisson. Boisson is French. Same thing. It's just that, and they noticed that, they said, that's French. I was like, yeah, I don't know this word. And then they had to correct me on that, to say, okay, like that word in Spanish is this. So, trying to, you substitute words that you don't know with languages that are similar. So it's kind of hard, because it's like you want to get this vocabulary down, but it just sometimes is that you switch into other words from other languages because you know that word best in that other language, which is perfectly normal with multilinguals or anyone raised in bilingual or trilingual households. And being multilingual in some ways does make me more of like a generalist in certain cases, because with learning so many, you don't master all of them. Like I said, for the first 4, I spent the most time. And then later on, eventually getting to a point where I was comfortable with the 5th one. Having, those that I've spent the most time in, like I said, going down the chain of command, it's like the lesser I know. And for me, I know that can sometimes be, because I know with a lot of the languages that I've learned, it's not, the goal was never to be fluent. The goal was just to prove that I could learn it, to learn something because I had friends. I had my own reasons for why I learned those languages. So the goal is not to necessarily be fluent, but the goal is mainly to make sure that, I'm kind of making personal connections. So that is the challenge. So it's more of like sometimes when you're in situations where it's like, I have learned this language, I've attempted to, or I've, had, for an extended period of time, I've learned this language, and it's frustrating because you don't know everything, which in my case, like I said, it wasn't the point. And the other thing is that as a multilingual, you kind of have like this like sense of like selection, where it's more of like for example, my mindset shifts based on what is most important, or like the languages I need that are important for me to focus on. So for example, French, my brain prioritizes that because that is the OG foreign language. I have like the first foreign language I ever learned and fell in love with. So there's that, and like I said, teaching it and having studied there and having those personal connections, that's like priority in my brain more than anything else. Spanish, it's not as much of a priority anymore because, like I said, I'm not in environments where Spanish is spoken as much. German, of course, is a priority because I have a relationship with someone who is of German origin. So, or nationality, I don't know what you really want to call it, but yeah. So that is a priority more than anything else. Going down the line with Italian, I learned that because my roommate was an Italian girl who I lived with a while ago before the pandemic. But, I was learning it before the pandemic because I wanted to make the personal connection, with that language, with the fact that it is pretty much French and Spanish combined, and then I learned Portuguese because I was like, why not? Why not learn it? I knew people who were Brazilian, Dutch, that was a language I just wanted to learn because I wanted to see how similar it was to German. Catalan, I was just curious because how similar it is to Spanish, since it is spoken in Spain. And Frisian, how similar is that to Dutch because it is the second official language there. 3 words in Arabic that I know, that was basically because I wanted to learn Arabic more in depth, but I just got scared sometimes. So, and then I recently taught myself the Ukrainian alphabet. So that I wouldn't say I know that language, but it's a language where I can actually know how to sound out words now. So, but yeah, it's just that my brain prioritizes things. Even though I learn all these languages, it's more of my brain spends more time on what is the area of focus. And also, there is constant frustration. As a multilingual, as much as people want to say that, like, oh, that's so cool, she knows all these languages, we get frustrated too because, like I said, for German, my boyfriend always said that my grammar sucks and my sentence structure sucks. So that's something that, even though I've been learning this for about 5 years now, I still get stuck on specific things. French, I had the same issue. French, I don't hesitate as much anymore. Especially with the first, French and German, since I use those the most, I don't hesitate as much when I speak, unless it's something complicated that I've never really, learned, because at German, I would say I passed B1. I'm still working through a B2 course right now. So, building on those skills, but we get frustrated too, because again, with being a generalist in so many different languages, you're not always mastering, one. You prioritize what you can, but then at the same time with a lot of others, you're not really mastering it. You're more of having a general basic, A1 level knowledge. So I hope this kind of gives you some insights on the fact that multilinguals, we are not unicorns, but at the same time, we also have challenges in getting to those areas of proficiency. So. And also coming up next month on the first day of summer will be our launch of the second year we've launched this campaign for the Learn As You Go. So this is going to help us build scholarship funds for students to study abroad, as well as being able to give us the ability to create more resources for you as a language learner. So we hope to have your support.